But I remember Julia came to see me in New York, and he said, Richard, she's
At 76, Richard Gere finally says what no one ever expected to hear. The man who defined Hollywood charm for an entire generation. The seductive smile, the dangerous softness, the quiet fire behind the eyes, now reveals the 6 actresses he once secretly wanted to sleep with. No scripts, no rehearsals, no polite red carpet diplomacy, just the unfiltered truth from a man who spent decades pretending to be the gentleman everyone adored. For the first time, Richard Gere admits that behind the roles, the tuxedos, and the slow-burn chemistry on screen, there were moments where desire blurred into reality. Moments where just one look, one touch, one whispered line could have changed everything. And the most shocking part? 2 names on this list are absolute Hollywood legends. And one of them was his co-star in a movie the entire world fell in love with. Let's begin, and trust me, number 1 will surprise everyone. The first one is Julia Roberts. Everyone expected this name to appear somewhere on Richard's list, but no one expected him to speak about her the way he finally does. Pretty Woman wasn't just a movie. It was a worldwide fever, and the chemistry between Richard Gere and Julia Roberts was almost too perfect to be acting. Now, at 76, Richard admits what the world always suspected. He wasn't just charmed by her, he was dangerously drawn to her. He describes moments on set where one smile from Julia melted everything around her. He says there were takes where she would place her hand on his chest, look up with those wide brown eyes, and he would almost forget the camera was rolling. I won't lie, he laughs softly. There were scenes where, if she had whispered the right words, the film would have turned into something else entirely. But he also admits their bond was too perfect to ruin, a delicate balance between desire and respect. And that tension, that electric, forbidden tension, is exactly what made the movie so immortal. If you've ever rewatched Pretty Woman just for their chemistry, hit the like button now. And tell us in the comments, did you always suspect something more between them? But as irresistible as Julia was, the next woman on his list brought a very different kind of temptation, one that was darker, sharper, and far more dangerous. The second one is Michelle Pfeiffer. Richard Gere calls her trouble, and he doesn't mean it as an insult. To him, Michelle Pfeiffer was the kind of woman who could walk into a room and immediately change the temperature. Icy elegance on the outside, magnetic fire on the inside. He remembers a moment during an award night after-party. Michelle walked toward him in a silver dress, the lights catching every curve and every quiet breath she took. She greeted him with a soft, whispered, "Hello, Richard," and he swears that every man in the room looked away because standing next to her felt like standing in front of a goddess. Richard confesses that he always had a weakness for women who carried mystery like perfume, and Michelle was the ultimate mystery. She didn't need to flirt, he says, she just needed to look. One long gaze, one slow smile, and suddenly Gere, the smoothest man in Hollywood, felt his confidence shake. He says if Michelle had ever leaned in just an inch too close, he would have lost control without hesitation. But Michelle wasn't the reckless type. She kept her distance, kept her poise, kept her secrets. And maybe that's exactly why she stayed in his mind for decades. If you think Michelle Pfeiffer is one of the most irresistibly elegant actresses ever, click subscribe, because Richard's story is far from over. And speaking of dangerous chemistry, his next confession might be the most revealing one yet. The third one is Diane Lane. Some on-screen pairings feel real, but Richard Gere says his connection with Diane Lane was real, too real. They starred together twice, first when she was young and radiant, later in the explosive film Unfaithful. And according to Richard, there were moments on set when desire blurred so close to the edge that even the director looked uncomfortable. He remembers rehearsing a scene where Diane had to get close enough to touch his cheek. But instead of a light touch, she let her fingers linger, slow, warm, intentional. Richard admits he forgot his lines more than once. She had that effect, he says, smiling as if remembering something he shouldn't. Their energy was magnetic, dangerous, almost forbidden. Richard confesses that if the two of them had ever been alone in the wrong room at the wrong time, something would have happened, no question. But professionalism, timing, and their personal lives kept that fire from turning into something real. Sometimes, he says, the strongest chemistry is the one that never gets acted on. If you've ever felt that Diane Lane and Richard Gere looked almost too perfect together, let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like the video to support our channel, because the next 3 names, they're even bolder, even more shocking, one of them being a woman Richard says he would have crossed oceans for. The 4th one is Sharon Stone. Richard says she had a presence that felt like standing too close to fire, thrilling, beautiful, and a little bit frightening. When they finally spoke, her voice was low and teasing. She leaned in just enough for him to catch her perfume and whispered, "I've always wanted to work with you, but maybe it's better we don't." Richard admits he felt his pulse jump. She knew exactly what she was doing. He laughs today. Sharon was a woman who challenged men, pushed them off balance, and watched with playful satisfaction as they tried to recover. If things had aligned differently, Richard confesses, we could have been a disaster or unforgettable. If you think Sharon Stone is still one of the most dangerous beauties Hollywood ever produced, smash the like button. But Richard wasn't done, because the next woman wasn't dangerous in a wild way, she was dangerous in a smart way. The 5th one is Susan Sarandon. Richard describes Susan Sarandon as the woman who could seduce you without touching you. Confidence, intelligence, wit. She had a combination that left men either intimidated or completely undone. He remembers a charity gala where they ended up talking for nearly an hour about life, fame, philosophy, and the madness of Hollywood. Richard confesses that at one point he stopped listening to her words and just watched the way she moved her hands while speaking. Susan has this energy, he says, like she knows everything about the world and also everything about you, and you don't mind it at all. She had a voice that wrapped around you like velvet, and a gaze that challenged you to step a little closer than you should. Richard admits that if she had taken his hand that night, he would have followed her anywhere. But Susan was never the type to create chaos. She kept things grounded, elegant, intentional. Maybe that restraint is exactly what made her so irresistible. If you agree that Susan Sarandon has one of the most naturally seductive auras in film history, leave a comment below. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. But Richard saved his most surprising confession for last, the woman he says he would have risked everything for. The 6th one is Sophia Loren. Even at 76, Richard's voice changes when he speaks her name. Sophia Loren wasn't just another actress, she was the woman. A legend, an icon, a force of nature wrapped in grace and fire. Richard admits that seeing her for the first time felt like watching the universe tighten into one perfect shape. She didn't need to try. She simply was. They met briefly at an awards night. Sophia placed her hand on his cheek, a small gesture of affection, and Richard says he stopped breathing for a second. I'm not exaggerating. I forgot the room. I forgot where I was. I forgot my own name. Her accent, her warmth, her eyes that felt like they had lived 1,000 lifetimes. Richard confesses she was the one woman he would have crossed oceans for, no questions asked. If she had called me at midnight and said, "Richard, come," I would have been at her door before sunrise. Even now, decades later, she remains the one impossible dream he never fully let go of. These 6 women, Julia Roberts, Michelle Pfeiffer, Diane Lane, Sharon Stone, Susan Sarandon, and Sophia Loren, represent 6 different kinds of desire. Richard Gere may be 76, but he laughs and admits, age doesn't kill attraction, it just makes you finally honest about it. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like the video, leave a comment telling us which name surprised you the most, and subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive into Hollywood legends. Because trust me, this is just the beginning. In the end, Richard Gere's confession isn't really about desire. It's about honesty, honesty that only comes with age, distance, and the kind of wisdom you earn after decades in the spotlight. At 76, he finally says out loud what he once kept tucked behind charm, restraint, and Hollywood politeness. These 6 women weren't scandals waiting to happen. They were moments of temptation, chemistry, and dreamlike what-ifs that shaped the man behind the screen. He doesn't speak with regret. He speaks with a smile, half nostalgic, half mischievous, as if admitting these truths finally frees him from the image the world built around him. Every man, he says, has a few names he never forgets. and now we know his. But perhaps the real message here is simpler. The heart never grows old, desire never truly fades, and even legends like Richard Gere carry secret stories that remind us they are human, vulnerable, and wonderfully imperfect. If this story made you smile, leave a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more untold stories from Hollywood's most fascinating stars. Because behind every icon, there is always a truth that the world hasn't heard yet.